Don't touch her.
The slap never landed. Funke Johnson caught Zara George's wrist less than an inch from the old woman's face. The pharmacy went dead quiet. Zara stared at Funke's hand around her wrist, then at the phones already turning towards them. "You have just destroyed your career," she said. Funke released her slowly. Behind her, the elderly woman stood frozen beside a promotional stand, one hand gripping her handbag. She looked shaken, but she refused to step back. "You were going to hit her," Funke said. Zara laughed. And that was when somebody started recording. Not the raised hand. Not the insults. Not the moment Zara moved towards the old woman. Only Funke holding her wrist. 14 seconds. That was all it would take to make the woman who stopped an assault look like the attacker. But Funke had no idea who she had just protected, and she certainly did not know that the old woman's son was one of the most powerful billionaire CEOs in the country. Don't miss what happens next, because this story is not going where you think. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is there right now. And if you enjoy stories where dignity still matters when nobody powerful is watching, subscribe to the channel. Because by the end of this day, one woman would be suspended, one lie would begin spreading, and the wrong person would think she had already won. 2 hours earlier, Oakline Community Pharmacy had been having the kind of Saturday Funke hated and secretly loved. Hated because the queue seemed to grow whenever she looked away. Loved because a busy branch made her feel useful. The pharmacy sat on a busy road in Ikeja, wedged between a diagnostic center and a supermarket whose generator hummed so loudly that sometimes customers had to lean closer to hear the cashier. Inside Oakline, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant, cardboard cartons, and the peppermint sweets kept beside the till. Funke had worked there for 6 years, long enough to know which fridge door refused to close properly unless you lifted it first. Long enough to know that Mr. Adderwale, who collected his blood pressure medication every month, liked to complain about the price before paying without argument. Long enough to know that older customers often nodded as if they understood instructions, even when they had not heard a word. That last part mattered to her. Her late father had done the same thing. He had been proud in the ordinary way many older men were proud. If a young pharmacist explained something too quickly, he would smile and say, "Yes, yes, I understand," then come home and ask Funke what the label meant. So Funke had made a habit of slowing down, not dramatically, not enough to embarrass anyone. "Just enough. Take this after food, Mama," she told an elderly customer that morning, tapping the label with one finger. "Not before. After. If it turns your stomach, call us. Don't just stop it by yourself," the woman nodded. "God bless you. Amen. Sit small before you go. The sun outside is wicked." That was Funke, 33 years old, operations supervisor, 2 shirts always ironed ahead of time. 1 pair of sensible black shoes under her desk in case the pair on her feet gave trouble. She was not rich, but she was not destitute either. Her salary paid rent on a modest flat she shared with her younger cousin, helped her mother with groceries, and left just enough for her to save towards something she had not yet told anyone about. She wanted the branch manager's office, not Peter Nwosu's exact office, the role. For 3 years, Peter had told her she was almost ready. For 3 years, Funke had trained new staff, managed stock problems, handled angry customers, and stayed late whenever the cashier's reconciliation refused to balance. Now Oakline's owners were considering opening another branch, and Peter had finally said the words Funke had been waiting to hear. "If you keep your record clean this quarter, I'll recommend you for operations manager." Keep your record clean. Funke had carried that sentence around for 6 weeks like a sealed envelope. Which was why, when Bright Axis Experiential arrived that Saturday morning with banners, lights, a camera crew and enough branded display material to block half the front aisle, she took one look and knew the day could go wrong. The activation was for a new vitamin supplement distributed by Meridian Care Holdings. Oakline had signed on as one of several retail partners. Bright Axis was the outside marketing agency running the in-store promotion. Their people arrived fast, spoke fast, and occupied space as if the building had been designed for them. Zara George arrived last, ruby red blazer, black trousers, sharp heels that clicked against the tiles. Her hair was pulled into a sleek low ponytail, and she carried 2 phones. She did not greet the cashier. She asked where the camera would stand. "Not there," Funke said immediately. Zara turned. "Sorry? That display blocks the path to the prescription counter. It's for 3 hours, and people will need the prescription counter during those 3 hours." Zara looked at her badge. Funke. Operations supervisor. Yes. Zara smiled without warmth. "We have approval from management. Approval for the activation, not for blocking access." Peter appeared from the back office at exactly the wrong time. "Is there a problem?" "No problem," Zara said. Funke looked at Peter. "The stand needs to move about 2 feet. Peter glanced at the branded structure, then at Zara. "Can we manage it for today?" That was Peter's favorite phrase. "Can we manage it?" It usually meant somebody else should carry the inconvenience. Funke lowered her voice. "Sir, someone using a walking stick won't pass comfortably." Peter rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Move it a little," he told the activation crew. "Not too much. We don't want to spoil their camera angle." Zara said nothing, but she looked at Funke for 1 second too long. The stand moved. Barely. For the next hour, the pharmacy functioned around bright axis. Customers queued, promoters smiled. Music played too loudly from a portable speaker until Funke made them turn it down. A young man in a branded shirt tried to hand samples to a pregnant woman, without checking whether she wanted them. Funke stopped that too. Each correction tightened something in Zara's face. At 11:47, Ruth Ibe walked in. She did not look like anyone's idea of power. She wore a warm mustard Ankara dress with a cream head wrap tied simply at the back. Her handbag was brown leather, old but well cared for. She moved with the deliberate pace of someone who refused to be hurried, merely because other people were in a hurry. She had come to collect medication and buy a pack of glucose test strips. Nothing more. At the entrance, one promoter tried to stop her. "Mama, come and taste our new vitality drink." "No, thank you. It is very good for energy." I said, "No, my son." She smiled and walked on. The young promoter stepped aside. Ruth joined the queue. Then the camera crew began setting up for a short testimonial clip near the supplement stand. Zara wanted a clean background. That meant no trolley, no stacked cartons, no customers drifting through the shot, and apparently, no elderly woman moving slowly through the frame. Ruth had just reached the narrow opening beside the display when Zara snapped her fingers at one of the promoters. "Please clear this side." Ruth stopped. "Clear what side?" Zara pointed toward the waiting chairs near the wall. "Mama, please sit there for 2 minutes. We're filming. I am going to the counter. It will only take 2 minutes. I have already waited in your queue. This is not our queue." Ruth looked at the bright axis banners, then at the pharmacy counter. "Then you should not be blocking somebody else's." One of the promoters looked down to hide a smile. Zara heard it anyway. "Madam, please don't make this difficult." Ruth's face changed. Not dramatically, just enough for Funke, standing 8 meters away, to notice. "Young woman," Ruth said, "I am not making anything difficult. I am walking to a counter in a pharmacy." Zara stepped into her path. "Can you wait?" "I have been waiting 2 minutes." That one word irritated Zara more than shouting would have. She had spent the morning dealing with problems. One promoter had arrived late. The camera battery had failed. Meridian's regional marketing lead had asked for updated numbers. The pharmacy layout looked worse on camera than she had expected. Now an old woman was standing in the middle of her shot and saying no. Zara reached for Ruth's arm. Ruth pulled back. "Do not drag me. I'm only asking you to move. You are touching me after I told you not to." Heads began turning. Funke left the prescription counter. Zara did not look at her. "Madam, sit down." "I will not." "Then leave this side. Move your stand." A few people laughed. Small laughter. The kind that can be more humiliating than insult. Zara's face hardened. "Do you know how much this activation costs?" Ruth's eyebrows lifted. "No. And I cannot imagine why that should decide whether I may walk inside a pharmacy." The promoter nearest the camera turned away completely. Zara saw him. She saw everybody. That was the moment anger became performance. "You people come somewhere," she said, voice rising. "And because you are old, you think everybody must stop what they are doing for you." The pharmacy changed. The cashier froze with a receipt halfway out of the machine. A man waiting with his daughter looked up sharply. Faith Bellow, working near the stock shelves, whispered, "Ah." Ruth's fingers tightened around her handbag. "Say that again." Funke was already moving. "Zara." "Enough." Zara stepped closer to Ruth. "Please get out of my camera area." Ruth did not move. Then Zara lifted her hand. Maybe she intended to shove Ruth's shoulder. Maybe she intended to slap her. Later, Zara would insist she had only raised her hand because Ruth had grabbed at her blazer. But Ruth had not touched her. Funk saw the open palm. She saw the angle. She saw Ruth flinch. And she moved before she had time to think about Peter's warning. "Keep your record clean." Her hand closed around Zara's wrist. The slap never landed. "Don't touch her." For 1 second, Zara looked stunned, then embarrassed, then furious. That was when Funke came up. Funke let go. Zara rubbed her wrist as though she had been injured. "You assaulted me." Funke stared at her. "You were going to hit her. You assaulted me in front of my team. I stopped you. You grabbed me." "Yes, because your hand was in the air." Peter came running from the office. "What happened?" Everybody spoke at once. Zara spoke loudest. "She put her hands on me," Ruth said. "Because you raised yours against me. I did not touch you. You were about to. You don't know what I was about to do." Ruth looked at her for a long moment. "No, but I know what you had already done." Zara opened her mouth. Funke cut in. "Stop filming." The young man with the phone looked at her. "I said stop filming. This is a pharmacy. There are customers here." He lowered the phone, but the clip was already recorded. 14 seconds. It would be online before lunch. Peter pulled Funke aside. "Why did you touch her?" Funke blinked. "Did you not hear what happened?" "I'm asking why you touched her." "Because she raised her hand at that woman. You could have called me. You were in the office. You could have called security. There is one security man outside, and he was helping a delivery rider." Peter glanced towards Zara. She was already making a call. His voice dropped. "Funke, this company is bringing serious business to us." Funke stared at him. "And the woman?" "What?" "The woman she was about to slap. What is she bringing?" Peter frowned. "Don't talk like that. I'm asking. This is not the time." It was exactly the time. Funke knew it. Peter knew it too. He simply did not like the answer. Across the pharmacy, Ruth sat down at last. Not because Zara told her to. Because her knees had started trembling. Faith brought her water. Ruth took one sip and looked toward Funke. "Young woman." Funke crossed to her. "Are you hurt, my arm?" "She held it before you came. Let me see." A faint mark was already appearing near Ruth's elbow. Funke's jaw tightened. "Faith, please bring the first aid ice pack." Ruth watched her. "What is your name?" "Funke." "Funke what?" "Funke Johnson." Ruth nodded once, as if committing it to memory. "You should write down what happened." "I will." Now Funke looked at her. Ruth's voice remained calm. People remember courage differently after they become afraid. The sentence landed harder than Funke expected. She looked toward Peter. He was talking to Zara with both hands raised in that calming way people used when they feared the person making noise more than the person who had been harmed. Funke understood. She went behind the counter, opened the incident report template and began typing. Time, location, people present, what she saw, what she did. She wrote plainly, no adjectives, no violent, no crazy, no heartless, just facts. At the end, she added one line. "Please preserve pharmacy CCTV covering the front aisle between 11:40 a.m. and 12:05 p.m. Then she emailed it to Peter, copied Oakline's area operations address, and printed a copy. Peter saw the email arrive on his phone. He looked at her. "You sent this already?" "Yes." "Funke." "What?" "We have not even spoken properly. That is why I wrote what happened while it is still fresh." He lowered his voice. "You are making this bigger." "No, sir." Funke looked toward Ruth. Zara was packing her equipment now, furious, speaking rapidly into the second phone. It was already big. By 12:23, the activation crew had left. By 12:31, the first video was posted. By 12:45, somebody had added a caption. Pharmacy staff attacks brand manager in Ikeja. By 1:10, the clip had been reposted 3 times. The video did not show Zara raising her hand. It began with Funke gripping her wrist. It showed Zara saying, "You assaulted me." It showed Funke saying, "You were going to hit her." It ended before Ruth spoke. No lie had been inserted. That was what made it dangerous. Everything in the clip had happened. It simply began too late. Faith brought her phone to Funke behind the counter. "You've seen this?" Funke watched once, then again. On the second viewing, she noticed how aggressive she looked. Her shoulders forward, her hand around Zara's wrist, her face hard. No elderly woman in frame except the edge of Ruth's cream head wrap. Funke handed the phone back. "That is not what happened." "I know. Then why does it look like that?" Faith did not answer. She did not need to. At 2:00, Peter called Funke into his office. He closed the door. That frightened her more than if he had left it open. There were 3 emails on his screen. One from Oakline's regional operations manager. One from Bright Axis. One from Meridian's vendor marketing team. Peter did not ask her to sit. "Bright Axis says you attacked their activation manager." "I didn't. They have video. So do we." Peter looked at her. "What do you mean?" "The CCTV. He rubbed his forehead. "Yes, fine, we will check it. Today, we will follow process." Funke almost laughed. Peter had spent the morning telling her to manage around a block dial. Now process had become sacred. "They have asked that you be removed from customer-facing duty until this is resolved." "Who is they?" "Bright Axis. They do not employ me." "No, but we have a commercial relationship with them and with Meridian." "So?" "So I need you to understand the bigger picture." Funke stared at him. The bigger picture. Another useful phrase. It usually meant the person with less power should become smaller. "What are you saying?" Peter exhaled. "I am placing you on temporary suspension pending investigation." The room became very quiet. Funke's eyes went to the framed staff photo behind Peter's desk. She was in the front row. 6 years at Oakline. 2 employee commendations. No disciplinary warning. No sick leave abuse. No missing stock under her supervision. "Keep your record clean." She looked back at Peter. "Paid suspension?" He hesitated. That was the answer. "You mean you don't know? Funke, please." "No. I want to understand." Peter lowered his voice. "Go home today. Let me calm this matter. We can sort it. How? We will see." "How?" He did not answer. Funke picked up her bag from the chair near the wall. At the door, Peter said, "Don't post anything online." She turned. "I wasn't planning to." "And don't contact Zara." "I wasn't planning to." "Good." Funke opened the door, then stopped. "Please confirm the CCTV is preserved." Peter's face tightened. "I saw your email. That is not what I asked." For the first time that day, Peter looked embarrassed. "I will confirm it." Funke nodded. She walked out through the pharmacy, where she had spent 6 years learning everybody else's routines. People looked at her. Some with sympathy, some with curiosity. One man looked away too quickly. Outside, the heat hit her face. Her phone vibrated before she reached the bus stop. A message from Faith. "Sis, I'm sorry." Then another. "They are saying you attacked her." Funke stood under the narrow shade of a roadside sign and stared at the words. Across the street, traffic pushed forward in angry bursts. A Danfo conductor shouted for passengers. A motorcycle squeezed between 2 cars. Everything continued. Funke's career had just been placed on a shelf called pending investigation, and Lagos did not even slow down to watch. She put the phone in her bag. Then it vibrated again. Unknown number. "Good afternoon. This is Ruth Ibe, the woman from the pharmacy. Please save my number. I have written down what happened. I will not allow anybody to say you attacked that woman because of me." Funke read the message twice. She typed back. "Thank you, Ma. I hope your arm is okay," Ruth replied all immediately. "It will be." Then, after a pause, another message appeared. "Keep your own record." Funke looked at the screen. For the first time since Peter suspended her, she felt something inside her settle. Not relief. Something firmer. She opened her email on the spot and forwarded the incident report to her personal address. Then she saved the time-stamped confirmation. It was a small decision. At that moment, it felt almost petty. Later, it would matter. Funke did not sleep well that night. She tried. She showered, ate half a plate of rice she could not taste, and told her cousin Dami that the situation would be resolved by Monday. Dami did not believe her. Neither did Funke. At 9:30, the video reached one of the larger Lagos gossip pages. The caption changed again. Woman attacks marketing executive during pharmacy event. The comments multiplied. Some defended Funke. Most did not know enough to defend anybody. That did not stop them. See aggression. People don't know how to behave at work. Why touch somebody because of argument? Maybe the manager insulted her first. Everybody is always a victim after they are caught on camera. Funke made the mistake of reading until comment number 87. Then she saw a photograph of herself taken from Oakline's old Facebook page. Her full name was in the caption. She locked the phone, unlocked it, deleted the app, downloaded it again 10 minutes later. That was when she understood how quickly shame could become a habit. She was not ashamed of stopping Zara. She was ashamed of being watched by strangers who believed they knew why she had done it. Those were different things. At midnight, her mother called from Ibadan. Funke, what am I hearing? Her stomach tightened. Who called you? Your auntie saw something online. She said you were fighting somebody. I was not fighting. So what happened? Funke sat on the edge of her bed and explained. Slowly, her mother listened without interruption. When Funke finished, there was silence. Then her mother said, Did you hit the woman? No. Did you insult her? No. Did you stop her from hitting an old woman? Yes. Then sleep. Funke laughed once without humor. Mummy, they suspended me. I heard you. My promotion is probably finished. I heard you. And you are telling me to sleep? I am telling you that fear will not solve something at 1 o'clock in the morning. Funke pressed her fingertips to her eyes. Her mother continued. You can regret the consequence and still know the action was right. Those two things can live in the same room. That sounded exactly like something her father would have hated hearing because it was too sensible. Funke smiled despite herself. Okay, and stop reading comments. How do you know I'm reading comments? You are my child. Funke lay down after the call. She still did not sleep, but she stopped reading. Across Lagos, Ruth Ibe was having a different kind of evening. Her son noticed the bruise before she mentioned the pharmacy. Ikenna Ibe had come to her house for dinner later than promised, wearing a cobalt blue suit jacket over a white shirt, his tie folded into one pocket. He was 45 and had the permanently alert expression of a man who managed too many conversations before breakfast. Meridian Care Holdings had begun as a medical distribution company 12 years earlier. It had grown into a group supplying pharmacies, clinics, and consumer health retailers across several West African markets. Business magazines liked to describe Ikenna as self-made. His mother disliked the phrase. No one makes himself, she had once told a journalist within Ikenna's hearing. Did he give birth to himself too? The journalist laughed. Ikenna did not. He had heard that joke since university. That evening, Ruth was carrying a bowl from the kitchen when the sleeve of her dress shifted. Ikenna saw the dark mark near her elbow. Mummy, Ruth kept walking. What? What happened to your arm? She looked down as if she had forgotten. Nothing serious. He stood. What happened? I said nothing serious. Mummy, she put the bowl down. I went to a pharmacy, and a young woman behaved foolishly. What young woman? Ruth sat. Ikenna remained standing. That alone made her sigh. Sit down before you turn this into a board meeting, he sat. She told him everything. Not dramatically. Ruth was a retired principal. She had spent 31 years breaking fights between teenagers, listening to parents accuse teachers, teachers accuse parents, and students accuse the laws of mathematics. She understood that details mattered. She told him about the display stand, the camera, Zara asking her to move, the hand on her arm, the insult, the raised palm, and Funke. When she said Funke's name, Ikenna's expression changed. She stopped the woman. Yes, where was security? Not there. Where was the manager? Somewhere useful, I suppose. until he became useless. Ikenna gave her a look. Ruth ignored it. And this marketing woman works for the pharmacy? No. Bright something. Bright Axis? Ruth looked at him. You know them? Ikenna sat back. We use them. For what? Experiential marketing. Retail activations. Ruth's mouth tightened. Then perhaps you should experience their marketing. Ikenna was already reaching for his phone. Ruth put one hand over it. No. He looked at her. No what? You are not calling anybody yet. Mummy, one of our contractors put hands on you. And I'm supposed to finish eating. Yes. He stared. She stared back. Ikenna was a billionaire in rooms where that number mattered. At his mother's dining table, he was still the boy who once tried to hide a broken window with a curtain. He put the phone down. Ruth served him stew. He did not touch it. What do you want me to do? First, find out what happened to Funke. Who is Funke? The woman who stopped the slap. I know that. What do you mean what happened to her? The pharmacy manager was more worried about your contractor than about his own worker. I watched him. Ikenna's jaw tightened. You think they punished her? I think frightened people often punish whoever costs least. He picked up his phone again. Ruth moved her hand toward it. I said no. Mummy, listen to me. He did. If you call tomorrow and say that woman touched your mother, everybody will start behaving properly because I am your mother. That is not a bad outcome. It is if that is the only reason they behave properly. Ikenna looked away. Ruth leaned back. I was a stranger in that pharmacy. Funke did not know me. She did not know you. She did not know what I could do for her. She only saw an old woman about to be struck. Ikenna said nothing. She stood between us anyway. I understand. No, you understand that she helped me. That is different. Ruth tapped the table with one finger. I want to know whether your company has a system that would protect the next old woman whose son sells tomatoes. That one reached him. Ruth saw it. She picked up her spoon. Now eat. The rice is becoming cold because you are rich. Ikenna almost smiled, almost. He ate 3 mouthfuls before asking, do you have the woman's name? Zara George. And Funke's full name? Funke Johnson. Did you write a statement? Yes. He looked at her. You already wrote one. I was a principal for 3 decades. Do you think I wait for rich sons before I know how to document trouble? This time he did smile. Ruth did not. Don't make light of it. I'm not. Good. He ate another mouthful. Then he asked, can I make one call? Ruth considered. 1. He opened his contacts. To legal? No. Security? No compliance. Ruth nodded. That sounds boring enough to be useful. Ikenna called Meridian's chief compliance officer, Marcus Daniels. He did not say, fire everybody. He did not say, do you know who I am? He said, there was an incident today involving one of our retail activations and Bright Axis. My mother was involved, which means I have a conflict. Preserve all vendor communications, activation records and incident reports related to Oakline Community Pharmacy. I want an independent fact review. I should not lead it. Marcus was silent for a beat. Is your mother all right? She is sitting opposite me, criticizing my dinner manners. So yes, what kind of incident? Potential physical misconduct toward a customer, followed by an intervention by pharmacy staff. There may be a social media clip. I've seen something circulating. Ikenna's eyes sharpened. You have? Not through work. Someone sent it to a group chat. A woman in a pharmacy holding another woman's wrist. That staff member may have been preventing my mother from being struck. Marcus went quiet again. I understand. Do not tell Bright Axis the customer is my mother until you have to. First, secure records. And Marcus? Yes? If the pharmacy suspended the employee, note that too. Don't interfere with their HR process. Just document it. Understood. Ikenna ended the call. Ruth nodded. Better. Thank you for your approval. Madam Principal, don't be rude. He looked at her bruised arm. The humor left. Mummy, she could have hit you. Ruth followed his gaze. Yes, you're saying it as if it is nothing. I am saying it as something that almost happened. I'm angry. I know I want consequences. I know, and you're asking me to be calm. Ruth shook her head. I am asking you to be fair while angry. That is harder. The next morning, Funke woke to an email from Peter. Temporary suspension confirmed. She would remain off duty while Oakline reviewed the incident. Pay status would be determined after consultation with HR. There was no mention of the CCTV. Funke called Peter. He did not answer. She waited 10 minutes and called again. No answer. Then he sent a message. In meeting, will revert. He did not revert. At 10, Bright Axis emailed Oakline a formal complaint accusing Funke of unprovoked physical aggression, reputational harm, disruption of a paid activation, and failure to follow management escalation procedures. Zara's statement was attached. Peter forwarded it to Funke with one line. Please review and send any comments by 4 p.m. Funke opened the statement. She read it once, then again. Zara claimed Ruth had become verbally confrontational after being politely asked to wait. She claimed Ruth had moved into restricted filming space despite repeated safety guidance. She claimed Zara raised her hand to create distance after Ruth reached toward her jacket. Then came the sentence that made Funke sit upright. Ms. Johnson then rushed forward without warning and forcefully restrained my wrist, causing pain and public humiliation. Funke whispered without warning. Dami looked over from the sofa. What? Nothing. Funke kept reading. Zara requested a formal apology and written assurance that Funke would not be present at any future Bright Axis activation. There was no mention of grabbing Ruth's arm. No mention of the insult about old people. No mention of the open palm moving toward Ruth's face. Funke opened a new document. She started making a timeline. Not because anyone told her to, because Ruth had. Keep your own record. 11:47, elderly customer entered pharmacy, approx. 11:55, argument at display stand, approx. 11:58, Zara George took customer by arm, approx. 11:59, raised hand toward customer. Funke paused. Was it 11:59? She checked the incident report she had emailed herself. She had written just before noon. Better, she changed it, approx. Just before 12, facts where she had facts, approximation where she did not. Then she listed names. Faith Bello, cashier. Samuel Peter, promoter in green shirt nearest camera, name unknown, male customer with daughter, name unknown, security guard outside during delivery, Yusuf. She wrote what each person might have seen. By noon, she had a 2-page chronology. She emailed it to Peter. Then she asked again in writing for confirmation that CCTV had been preserved. At 12:19, Peter replied, IT vendor has been asked not to overwrite footage. We are handling it. Funke saved that email too. At 1:40, Faith called. Her voice was low. Are you alone? Yes. What happened? Nothing. I just wanted to check on you. Funke leaned back in her chair. I'm alive. They sent a memo. What memo? Staff should not discuss the incident with customers or media. That makes sense. And Peter said everybody should direct questions to him. Also makes sense. Faith was silent. Funke knew her well enough to hear the rest. What are you not saying? Faith exhaled. They asked who saw what. And? I said I was near stock. You were. I didn't say I saw Zara raise her hand. Funke looked at the wall. Okay, I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? Because I saw it. Funke said nothing. Faith rushed on. My mother depends on me. You know that. My younger brother is still in school. Peter can make my life difficult even if he doesn't fire me. I don't want Faith. Silence. I'm not going to pressure you, but you need witnesses. I need the truth. If you are afraid, say you are afraid. Don't lie for me. Don't lie for them. Faith's breathing steadied. You're not angry? I didn't say that. Faith almost laughed. Funke continued. I am angry, but I understand. Another silence. Then Faith said she did raise her hand. I know, and Mama did not touch her blazer. I know. I just don't know if I can say it officially yet. Then don't promise me. Faith whispered. Okay. After the call, Funke sat with her phone in her lap. She wanted to be generous about Faith's fear. She also wanted to scream. Both feelings stayed. That afternoon, an email arrived from Oakline HR. They wanted a virtual meeting on Monday. Attached was a proposed written apology. Funke opened it. The first paragraph was harmless. I regret that an interaction during Saturday's brand activation escalated and caused disruption to customers and partners. The second paragraph was not. I acknowledge that I made physical contact with Ms. George rather than following the proper escalation chain. Technically true, dangerously incomplete. The third paragraph was worse. I accept responsibility for my role in creating an unsafe and unprofessional environment. Funke read that sentence 4 times. Her cousin Dami looked over. You're doing that face. What face? The one where you are insulting somebody inside your head. Funke turned the laptop toward her. Dami read. Ah, exactly. Will you sign? No. Dami looked at her carefully. Your rent is due next week. I know. You sent money to Auntie last month. I know. And they haven't confirmed whether suspension is paid. I know. Dami folded her arms. So I am not asking because I think you are wrong. I am asking because being right is expensive. Funke looked at the document again. That was the part people rarely put in inspirational stories. Integrity was cheap when it cost nothing. It became something else when rent, promotion, and reputation sat on the other side of the scale. Funke closed the laptop. I will not sign that. Dami nodded. Okay, you think I should? No, but I think we should price beans carefully this week. Funke laughed. A real laugh this time. Then she opened the laptop again and typed her response. I am willing to acknowledge that physical contact occurred. I cannot accept language suggesting I created the unsafe situation. My contact with Miss George was solely to stop an imminent physical strike against an elderly customer. I request that the full CCTV and witness statements be reviewed before any apology is finalized. She read it aloud. Changed solely to only. Changed imminent physical strike to raised hand moving toward the customer. Plainer better. She sent it. At Meridian headquarters on Monday morning, Marcus Daniels began the review without Ikenna in the room. That was deliberate. He requested Bright Access's activation plan, the account manager's report, internal messages related to the Oakline event, and the escalation emails sent to the pharmacy. He asked Oakline to preserve and provide the relevant CCTV through its normal management channel. He asked for no special access to Ruth's medical information. He did not need it. A bruise did not prove a raised hand. A billionaire's anger did not prove misconduct either. Facts had to do their own work by 11. Bright Access knew Meridian was reviewing the matter. By 11:15, Zara knew too, she called Peter. Why has this gone to Meridian compliance? I don't know. You sent it? No, then who? I said I don't know. Zara stood in a glass meeting room at Bright Access, looking down at traffic 12 floors below. Her free hand shook slightly. She had not expected Meridian compliance. She had expected Oakline. Oakline was frightened of losing revenue. Bright Access understood frightened clients. Compliance was different. Compliance liked documents. Documents were harder to charm than people. Peter, she said, you need to resolve your employee issue quickly. The longer this remains open, the worse it looks for both of us. Peter heard the threat. So did Zara. She had not meant to make it sound like one. It was simply how pressure had started coming out of her mouth. Peter looked through his office window at Faith arranging stock. HR is meeting Funke today. Good. If she refuses the apology, Zara's voice cooled. Then you should ask whether somebody who refuses accountability belongs in customer service. Peter ended the call and sat very still. 5 minutes later, he opened Funke's personnel file. 6 years. No disciplinary record. Excellent performance notes. 3 documented cases where she had de-escalated angry customers without incident. 1 recommendation from Peter himself, describing her as calm under pressure and unusually reliable. He stared at his own words. Then his phone buzzed with an email from Bright Access Legal. The subject line read, Urgent, Oakline Incident Resolution. Peter closed Funke's personnel file. Fear won again, for the moment. The HR meeting lasted 38 minutes. Funke counted because the clock was visible behind Peter's shoulder on the video screen. Oakline's HR officer, a woman named Grace Williams, spoke first. We are trying to find a solution that protects all parties. Funke had learned to be suspicious of sentences where nobody was named. Which parties, she asked. Grace blinked. Everyone involved. Me, Zara, the customer, Oakline, and Bright Access? Yes. Okay. Grace looked down at her notes. We agree that physical contact occurred. Yes, and you accept that touching an external partner during an activation was not ideal. Funke almost smiled. Being slapped would also not have been ideal. Peter shifted in his chair. Funk, I'm not being difficult. I'm explaining why I touched her. Grace kept her voice level. Did Miss George actually strike the customer? No, I stopped her. So we are discussing intent. No, we are discussing a hand moving towards someone's face after an argument. That is your interpretation. It is what I saw. And Miss George says she was creating distance. Then watch the CCTV. A pause. Grace glanced at Peter. Have you watched it? Peter answered. Not yet. Funke sat forward. Why? The footage is stored by our security vendor. We have requested export. You suspended me before watching it. Peter's face tightened. You were suspended pending investigation, not found guilty. Without pay confirmed? Grace intervened. Your pay will continue during the initial review period. Funke did not expect the relief to be physical. Her shoulders dropped before she could stop them. Rent, beans, her mother's groceries. For 1 second, those ordinary things mattered more than principles. Then she straightened. Thank you. I still cannot sign the apology as written. Grace folded her hands. We can revise the wording. Remove the part saying I created an unsafe environment. We need mutual acknowledgement. There was nothing mutual about raising a hand at an elderly customer. Funke, you understand why the company needs to de-escalate. I understand why the company wants the problem to go away. Peter's eyes hardened. That is unfair. Funke looked at him. Then tell me what is fair about suspending me before checking the camera. Nobody answered immediately. Grace finally said, We will review all available evidence. All of it? Yes. Then I will wait. When the call ended, Funke sat alone at her dining table. Her laptop fan whirred softly. Outside, someone's generator coughed twice before starting. She should have felt victorious for holding her ground. She did not. She felt tired. That was another thing stories often lied about. Standing up for yourself did not always make you feel strong. Sometimes it made you want to sleep for 12 hours. Her phone rang. Ruth. Good afternoon, Ma. How are you? I'm fine. That is not an answer. Funke smiled faintly. I'm still suspended. Paid for now. Good. There was a pause. Ruth said. They asked me for a statement. Who? A compliance officer from Meridian Care Holdings. Funke frowned. The vitamin company? Yes. Why are they involved? Bright Axis works for them. Oh, Funke leaned back. That might help. It might. Ruth's answer sounded strange. Funke noticed but did not press. Ma, I hope they don't inconvenience you. They asked questions. I answered them. That is not inconvenience. Okay, and Funke? Yes? Do not exaggerate anything because you think the truth needs help. Funke went quiet. Ruth continued. The truth is already carrying enough weight. Let it carry its own. I understand. Good. After the call, Funke added Ruth's statement request to her chronology. She did not know why Meridian Compliance had become interested. She assumed the viral video had embarrassed the brand. That explanation made sense. It was also only part of the truth. At Bright Axis, Zara was building a different record. She had always been good at records. Campaign dashboards, attendance sheets, post-activation reports, photographs arranged to make empty spaces look crowded, numbers placed where senior people liked to see them. She knew how to tell a story with documents. The problem was that documents could tell stories back. Marcus Daniels requested Bright Axis internal messages from the day of the activation. That request reached Zara's director, Bode Coker. Bode called her into his office. What exactly happened? I already submitted my statement. I read your statement. Then you know. I know what you wrote. Zara folded her arms. What is that supposed to mean? Bode looked at her over his glasses. It means Meridian Compliance does not request internal account messages because somebody had a small argument in a pharmacy. They are overreacting because of social media. Maybe. He turned his laptop around. Did you tell a staff member on Friday that Oakline's elderly traffic would make the activation look dead? Zara's stomach tightened. It was an internal Teams message. She remembered it. It had been a joke. mostly. I was talking about camera pacing. You wrote, "Too many old customers at this branch. We need to keep them away from the front during filming." I meant redirect traffic. Then why didn't you write redirect traffic? Zara's mouth dried. Bode leaned back. I am asking you once. Is there anything else I will discover in these messages that you should tell me now? No, that answer came too quickly. Bode noticed. Zara noticed him noticing. Neither said anything. The truth was, Zara did not think of herself as cruel. Cruel people enjoyed hurting others. She did not. She enjoyed control. She enjoyed a smooth activation, good footage, clean numbers, and clients who renewed contracts. People who slowed those things down annoyed her. Old people moved slowly, children touched displays. Confused customers asked questions during filming. Pharmacy staff worried about aisles and queues instead of campaign visuals. In Zara's mind, these were operational problems. She had started talking about human beings the same way she talked about cables and cartons. Move them, clear them, keep them out of frame. She had not noticed when efficiency became contempt, or perhaps she had noticed and found it useful. Bode closed the laptop. Send compliance everything. I have everything. Yes. And stop contacting Oakline directly without copying legal. Zara's head snapped up. Why? Because this is now bigger than your account. She hated that sentence, not because it was false, because it was true. The CCTV arrived Tuesday afternoon. It came as a password-protected export from Oakline's security vendor. Peter received a copy. Grace received one. Marcus received one through the agreed review channel. Bright Axis Legal received access after confirming confidentiality terms. Funke did not. That bothered her until Grace called. We have reviewed the footage. Funke stood up from her sofa without knowing why. And? It confirms some elements of your account. Some? Funke, let me finish. She sat again. The camera angle does not capture audio clearly. It shows Ms. George making physical contact with the customer's arm. It shows an exchange. It shows her raising her hand. It shows you stepping in and holding her wrist. Funke closed her eyes. There it was. Not vindication. Not yet. But something solid. Does it show the customer touching Zara first? No. Does it show me rushing at Zara before her hand went up? No, then why am I still suspended? Grace paused. Because we are still reviewing whether your intervention complied with workplace safety procedure. Funke opened her eyes. For 3 seconds, she could not speak. Then she laughed. Not loudly, Grace said. I understand you're frustrated. No, I don't think you do. Funke, you suspended me because Bright Axis said I attacked their manager. Now the camera shows I didn't attack her first, and suddenly the question is procedure. The question can be more than one thing. Yes, but somehow the question keeps changing after I answer it. Grace's voice softened. That is fair criticism. Funke had expected defense. The admission disarmed her. Grace continued. I am recommending that your suspension be lifted while the broader review continues. Funke went still. When? Peter should contact you today. And the apology? Withdrawn in its current form. Funke let out a slow breath. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Why? Because the commercial dispute with Bright Axis is ongoing. I want to be clear with you. Returning to work does not mean the matter is over. I know. And social media may continue. I know. Grace hesitated. Funke, did you know the customer before Saturday? No, you're sure? Yes. Had you ever met anyone from Meridian senior leadership? No. The question was odd enough that Funke frowned. Why? Just part of the review. Okay. Grace ended the call. Funke stared at her phone. Dami came in from the kitchen. Well, I'm going back. Dami screamed. Funke jumped. Why are you shouting? Because somebody in this house must celebrate properly. It is not finished. Did I say finished? I said celebrate. She pulled Funke up from the sofa. Come. We have malt in the fridge. Malt? Yes. We are not yet at champagne level. Funke laughed. They drank malt from mismatched glasses. For 20 minutes, Funke allowed herself to enjoy being returned to a job she should never have lost. Then Peter called. His voice sounded careful. Come in tomorrow morning. Okay, and Funke. Yes? I want us to move forward professionally. She looked at the malt in her hand. So do I. That was all she gave him. When Funke walked back into Oakline on Wednesday, the pharmacy looked exactly the same. That annoyed her. She did not know what she expected. Perhaps a crack in the ceiling, a mark on the tiles, something to show where her life had split for 4 days. Instead, the peppermint sweets were still beside the till. The fridge door still needed lifting. Mr. Adderwale was waiting to complain about his prescription price. "Madam Funke, you people have increased this thing again. I personally woke up and increased it because I knew you were coming." He stared at her, then laughed. "You are troublesome. You started it." For the first time all week, work felt normal, until she reached the back office. Peter was waiting. He closed the door. Again. Funke remained standing, Peter noticed. "Sit. I'm fine," he sighed. "Your suspension has been lifted with pay. I know. I want to explain something." Funke said nothing. Peter folded his hands. "When Bright Axis threatened the partnership, I had to consider the branch. The branch includes me. Yes, I worked here 6 years. I know. You had my performance record. I know. You had CCTV in the building. I know. Then what are you explaining?" Peter looked away. "That was the first honest thing he did. I was afraid." Funke's anger shifted, not disappeared. Shifted, Peter continued. "Bright Axis controls a large activation budget. Meridian is an important supplier. I thought if I could calm them quickly, we could investigate quietly afterward. So you suspended me first, yes?" "Because I was cheaper to upset." Peter looked at her. He did not answer. Funke nodded. "Thank you." "For what?" "For finally saying it without saying bigger picture." He almost objected, then stopped. "Your promotion review is still paused until this matter is closed." There it was. Funke had known. Still, hearing it hurt. "Of course. I am not saying it is cancelled. I heard you." She turned toward the door. "Funke." She stopped. "I am sorry the suspension happened before the footage was reviewed. It was not enough, but it was more than yesterday." Funke nodded once and left. The next 3 days were quieter on the surface and more dangerous underneath. Bright Axis stopped pushing for Funke's apology. Instead, its legal team began arguing that Zara's hand movement could not conclusively establish intent to strike. Technically, they had a point. CCTV showed movement. It did not show thoughts. Marcus agreed. He refused to build the case around whether Zara had intended a slap. That frustrated Ikenna when Marcus updated him privately. "You saw the footage." "I did. She raised her hand at my mother." "Yes. And we are discussing philosophy." "No. We are separating what we can prove from what we believe." Ikenna stood behind his desk. "What can you prove?" "That Ms. George grabbed your mother's arm after your mother pulled away. That she blocked her path. That Ms. Johnson intervened only after Ms. George raised her hand and stepped toward your mother. That the social media clip begins after those actions. And that Ms. George's written report contains statements not supported by the full footage." Ikenna's expression changed. "Which statements?" "Your mother did not appear to reach for Ms. George's blazer before the hand was raised. Ms. Johnson did not rush forward without warning. She moved after the hand went up." "That is enough. For the incident review, it is significant." "Significant? Do you want me to do my job, or do you want me to borrow your anger?" Ikenna stared at Marcus. Most people did not speak to him that way. That was one reason Marcus still had the job. Ikenna sat. "Do your job. I am." Marcus opened another folder. "And there is something else." "What?" 2 prior complaints from retail partners involving Bright Axis activation teams supervised by Ms. George. Ikenna frowned. "What kind?" "One older customer said she was pushed away from a sampling table when she asked to sit. Another complained that staff mocked her for taking too long to complete a form." "Were they investigated?" "At Bright Axis level, apparently. Both were logged as customer experience friction. No formal misconduct finding." Ikenna's face went still. "Why are we only seeing them now?" "Because nobody escalated them to us." "Should they have?" "Under the current contract, only certain categories trigger mandatory client escalation. Physical safety, regulatory complaints, serious reputational incidents. General customer complaints can be managed by the agency, and these were called general complaints." "Yes." Ikenna leaned back. There it was. A system could hide a problem without anybody technically hiding anything. All it needed was the right category. What do the internal messages show? Marcus looked at him. You won't like them. I stopped expecting that. Marcus read from the report. Keep elderly traffic out of front frame during filming. Ikenna said nothing. Another message. Oakline is slow because too many old customers ask questions. We need promoters to move them through faster. Ikenna's jaw tightened. Marcus closed the file. This is no longer only about Saturday. Ikenna looked through the window behind him. Far below, Lagos traffic crawled between buildings. His mother's question came back. What happens to the next old woman whose son sells tomatoes? Expand the review, he said. To what scope? Vedoned conduct at retail activations. Complaint handling, accessibility. Incentives that reward speed at the cost of customer dignity. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That is larger than one disciplinary case. I know, and it will expose our own oversight. I know, good. Ikenna looked at him. Why good? Because if you only wanted Bright Axis punished, this would be simpler. Ikenna did not smile. Simple is what got us here. On Friday afternoon, Funke received an invitation to a formal fact-finding meeting at Meridian's Lagos office. She read it 3 times. Oakline HR would attend. Bright Axis Legal would attend. Ruth Ibe would attend remotely if needed. A Meridian compliance representative would lead. Funke almost declined. Then she saw one line. You may bring any chronology, written statement, or supporting information you believe relevant. She printed everything. Her incident report. Peter's confirmation that CCTV had been preserved. The proposed apology. Her refusal. The timeline. The viral clip link. She put them in a cheap blue folder. Dami watched from the doorway. You look like you're going to court. I'm not. Your face thinks you are. Funke closed the folder. I just want it finished. Dami shook her head. No, you want it finished properly. Funke looked at her. That was true. And it was becoming expensive in a new way. Not money now. Energy, attention, sleep. She had started noticing every person who looked at her for too long in the pharmacy. She had stopped wearing her orange lanyard outside work because somebody recognized it once at a bus stop. She had become careful in public without meaning to. A 14-second video had entered her body. She hated that most. The Meridian meeting was scheduled for Monday at 10. At 9:42, Funke walked into the reception carrying the blue folder. The building was polished but not theatrical. Glass, quiet air conditioning, security that asked for identification without caring who looked important. She gave her name. The receptionist checked the list. Miss Johnson, please take a seat. Mr. Daniels will send for you. Funke sat. On the wall behind reception was a framed photograph from a community health event. Ikenna Ibe stood in the center wearing a dark suit, shaking hands with a state health official. Funke had seen his face before. Everybody in business news had. She looked away. A minute later, the lift opened. An elderly woman stepped out wearing a cream blouse and patterned skirt. Funke stood so fast, the blue folder slid from her lap. Ma Ruth? Ruth smiled. Good morning, Funke. What are you doing here? Ruth looked at the photograph on the wall, then back at Funke. For the first time since they met, she seemed uncertain about what to say. Before she could answer, a man came through the security doors behind her. Cobalt blue suit, white shirt, no tie. Funke recognized him immediately from the photograph. Ikenna Ibe stopped beside Ruth. Mummy, Marcus said. He saw Funke. Ruth closed her eyes briefly. Funke looked from him to Ruth. Then back to the photograph. Something cold moved through her stomach. Ikenna understood before she spoke. This is Funke Johnson? Ruth nodded. Yes. Funke's fingers tightened around the blue folder. Your mother, Ikenna said. Yes. The word seemed to change the temperature of the lobby. Funke looked at Ruth. You're his mother, yes. You knew Meridian was reviewing this because... Ruth interrupted gently. Because Bright Axis works for his company. Yes. Funke took one step back. Her first feeling was not relief. It was suspicion. Then anger at herself for feeling suspicion. Then something worse. She thought about the speed with which compliance had acted. The CCTV request. The expanded review. Her return to work. She heard herself ask, would any of this have happened if you were not his mother? Silence. The receptionist looked down at her screen. A security officer suddenly became interested in the far wall. Ikenna could have answered quickly. He did not. Funke looked at him. I'm sorry, sir. I know that sounds disrespectful. No, he said. It sounds like a question. Ruth watched her son. Funke swallowed. My branch suspended me before checking the camera. Bright Axis pushed for an apology before checking the camera. Then Meridian Compliance came in. I thought it was because the video mentioned the brand. Ikenna nodded slowly. It was partly because the incident involved our contractor. Partly. Yes. So would this review be this serious if she was just Mrs. Ibe from somewhere nobody important knew? Ruth's mouth twitched at the phrase just Mrs. Ibe. Ikenna did not smile. I don't know, he said. The honesty stunned Funke more than a polished answer would have. He continued, and I don't like that I don't know. A door opened behind them. Marcus Daniels stepped into reception. He took in the arrangement at once. Good, everyone has met. Ruth looked at him. Not exactly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Ikenna said, Miss Johnson just asked whether this process would exist if my mother were an ordinary customer. Marcus looked at Funke, then at Ikenna. And? I said I don't know. Marcus nodded. Then perhaps that should be part of what we review. Funke stared at him. The meeting had not even started. Yet, the story had already changed. Until that moment, Funke had believed the central question was whether she would be cleared. Now she understood there was another one. A harder one. What kind of system only discovers dignity after it learns a person's surname? The formal meeting began 12 minutes later. Marcus sat at the head of the table, not Ikenna. That mattered. Ikenna was not even in the room. He had left after telling Marcus, send me the findings when the process is complete. Ruth remained because she was a witness. Funke sat opposite Bode Coker from Bright Axis and a lawyer Funke had never met. Grace from Oakline joined remotely. Peter sat beside Funke with a notebook he barely touched. Zara arrived last. She wore a green blouse instead of the red blazer Funke remembered. No sharp heels, no second phone in sight. For a fraction of a second, the two women looked at each other. Zara looked away first, Marcus began. This is a fact-finding review. It is not a court hearing, and nobody in this room should pretend otherwise. We are here to establish what occurred at Oakline, what was reported afterward, and whether broader vendor or retail practices contributed. The Bright Axis lawyer raised a hand slightly. We reserve our position on any employment conclusions. Of course, Marcus said. Employment decisions are for the relevant employer. We are examining contractual and conduct issues. Funke noticed the distinction. It was small. It was also important. No billionaire magic. No one could snap a finger and turn a private meeting into a criminal judgment. Marcus asked Funke to speak first. She opened her blue folder. For a moment, the pages shook. She put both hands flat on the table. Then she started. Not with Zara. With the stand. She explained that the activation display had narrowed access to the prescription counter. She explained that she asked the team to move it. She explained the crowd, the camera setup, Ruth's attempt to pass, the argument, the touch on Ruth's arm, and the raised hand. She described grabbing Zara's wrist. She did not soften that part. I held her wrist, Funke said. I released it when the immediate movement stopped. Bright Axe's lawyer asked, did Miss George's hand make contact with Mrs. Ibe's face? No, so no slap occurred. No. Yet you believed physical restraint was necessary. Yes, based on what you thought might happen. Funke looked at him. Based on an argument, a customer being grabbed, an open hand raised toward her face, and the customer flinching. The lawyer leaned back. Marcus wrote something down. Ruth spoke next. Her account matched Funke's in almost every material detail. Not every word. That made Marcus trust it more. Ruth remembered Zara saying, you people think everybody must stop for you because you are old. Funke remembered, because you are old, you think everybody must stop what they are doing for you. Close, not identical. Memory, not rehearsal. Zara's turn came. She said she regretted that the interaction escalated. She said Ruth had entered a temporary filming area despite being asked to wait. She said. She placed a hand on Ruth's forearm only to guide her around equipment. She said. Ruth reacted sharply. Then Marcus asked, did Mrs. Ibe reach for your blazer before you raised your hand? Zara paused. That is how I remember it. Marcus turned a laptop toward her. The CCTV was paused on a frame. Ruth's hands were both visible. One held her bag. The other was down by her side. Zara stared. Marcus pressed play. No audio, only movement. Ruth tried to pass. Zara blocked her. Ruth moved left. Zara stepped left. Zara took Ruth's arm. Ruth pulled away. Words were exchanged. Zara's hand came up. Funke moved. The video stopped on Funke gripping Zara's wrist. Marcus said, "Your written report states that Ms. Johnson rushed forward without warning after Mrs. Ibe reached toward your clothing. The footage does not support either claim." Zara swallowed. "I was under stress when I wrote the report. So was Ms. Johnson, I know. Her report was filed roughly 20 minutes after the incident and requested preservation of this footage." Zara looked at Funke. Funke did not move. Marcus continued. "Your report was filed later that afternoon. It requested disciplinary action against Ms. Johnson. Why? Because she grabbed me. Did you mention that you had grabbed Mrs. Ibe first?" Zara was silent. "Did you mention the raised hand?" "I did not believe I was attempting to strike her." "That is not what I asked." Another silence. "No." The room shifted, not dramatically. No gasps. No one shouted. But Funke felt the shift. For days, she had been the person explaining why a 14-second clip was incomplete. Now Zara was the person explaining why her written report was incomplete. That difference mattered. Marcus moved on. He displayed the viral clip, 14 seconds. Then he played the full 90-second sequence from the CCTV. Same people, same room, different story. Peter looked down at his notebook. Marcus asked him, "When did Oakline first review the full footage?" Peter gave the date. "When was Miss Johnson suspended?" Peter gave the earlier date. "So the suspension preceded review of the footage." "Yes, why?" Peter inhaled. Bright Axis raised a formal complaint. The social media clip was spreading. "We wanted to stabilize the situation. Why suspend Miss Johnson rather than temporarily pause the activation pending review?" Peter's mouth tightened. "I believed the activation relationship was commercially important." Marcus looked at him for a long second. "More important than the employee's record?" Peter glanced toward Funke. "No. But that is how the decision functioned." Peter did not answer. Funke expected satisfaction. She felt none. Watching Peter shrink under the same kind of institutional pressure he had passed down to her did not feel good. It only made the pattern clearer. Pressure traveled downhill until somebody stopped it. Marcus opened another document. "Now we need to discuss prior complaints." Zara's head lifted. Bode's face went still. Marcus summarized the two earlier incidents. One involved an elderly woman who said a promoter moved her shopping bag from a chair so the seat could be used as a product display. Another involved an older man who said staff laughed when he asked for a form to be read aloud because he had forgotten his glasses. Neither complaint had reached Meridian. Bright Axis had classified both as service issues. Bode spoke carefully. "They did not involve physical misconduct." "Correct," Marcus said. "So they should not be treated as equivalent to Saturday." "Also correct." Bode seemed surprised. Marcus continued. "They are relevant because they involve the same operational pattern. Elderly customers described as obstacles to activation flow, with complaints minimized because campaign delivery remained on target." He displayed internal messages. Funke did not know where to look. One message from Zara read, "Oakline is always full of older customers asking too many questions. Keep front frame clean and move slow traffic to the side during filming." Another, "No chairs in activation zone. Once they sit, they don't move." Ruth's face changed. Not hurt, disgust. Zara looked at the table. Marcus asked, "When you wrote slow traffic, who were you referring to?" Zara did not answer immediately. "Customers who delayed the activation." "Customers, yes, human beings." Yet Marcus did not lecture her. That made the word hang longer. Human beings. Funke thought of the blocked aisle, the chairs, Ruth being told to move because of a camera frame. The problem had never begun with a raised hand. The hand was only where contempt became visible. The meeting continued for nearly 3 hours. By the end, nobody had announced a punishment. That surprised Zara. It surprised Funke too. Marcus closed his folder. "We will issue findings after reviewing all materials and any supplemental statements. Bright Axis will make its own employment decisions. Oakline will make its own. Meridian will make decisions concerning vendor status and future activation requirements." Zara's lawyer asked, Timeline. Within 10 business days. 10 days. Funke almost laughed. The internet had judged her in 14 seconds. A fair process wanted 10 days. That was the difference nobody liked until they needed it. Outside the meeting room, Ruth touched Funke's arm. You did well. Funke exhaled. I felt like I was sitting an exam. I have supervised exams. You were worse. Ruth smiled. Then Funke's face became serious. Ma, can I ask you something? You have already asked my son whether my life is worth more because he is rich. I think we have crossed into honesty. Funke winced. I did not mean it like that. I know, ask. Why didn't you tell me who he was? Ruth thought for a moment. Because I liked who you were before you knew. Funke looked at her. Ruth added quickly, not that I thought you would change, but people do change around power. Sometimes they become too kind, sometimes too afraid, sometimes too angry. I wanted at least one part of this thing untouched by that. Funke nodded. I understand, do you? I think so. Ruth adjusted her handbag. And you, what about me? Are you angry I did not tell you? A little good. Funke laughed again. You like difficult answers. I spent 31 years with teenagers. Easy answers are usually suspicious. They walked toward the lift. At the doors, Funke said, Thank you for speaking up for me. Ruth shook her head. I spoke about what happened to me. You spoke for yourself. That sentence stayed with Funke. 2 days later, Bright Axis made its first move. Bode called Zara into his office with HR present. This time, nobody pretended it was a normal conversation. We are removing you from the Meridian account pending our internal disciplinary process, he said. Zara's face went white. You cannot do that before their findings. We can manage our accounts. You are making me the scapegoat. No. You knew how aggressive the targets were. You approved the activation schedule. You asked for better footage. You wanted faster turnover. Bode did not deny it. That weakened Zara's anger for half a second. Then he said, and that will be reviewed too. She stared at him. You are protecting yourself. I am protecting the company. Same thing. Bode. Expression hardened. No, that belief is part of the problem. Zara laughed bitterly. Please spare me. I am not asking you to become a moral lesson. I am telling you that your report omitted material facts. Your messages show repeated disregard for elderly customers, and a client compliance review is open. You will not manage that client while this is unresolved. Zara stood. What about my bonus? Frozen with the account review. That hurt more than she expected. Not because of the money alone. The bonus represented winning. Zara had built her life around winning visible things. Targets, promotions, accounts, rooms where senior people knew her name. Now one old woman she had wanted out of a camera frame was sitting in the center of everything. Not because the woman was powerful. Because Zara had finally met a system forced to look at what she had trained herself not to see. She left Bode's office furious. By evening, her anger had found a target. Funke. Zara did not call her. She was no longer careless enough for that. Instead, Bright Axis's lawyer sent Oakline a proposed resolution. It arrived Friday morning. Peter called Funke into his office. Sit. This time she did. He slid a printed document toward her. What is this? A settlement proposal. Funke frowned. From who? Bright Axis. Through counsel, she read. Bright Axis would withdraw any request for discipline against Funke. It would issue a private statement acknowledging that the available footage showed a complex interaction and that Funke's conduct occurred in response to perceived risk to a customer. Oakline would confirm Funke's return to work with no disciplinary finding. Both sides would agree not to make public statements blaming the other. Then Funke reached the phrase that mattered. The parties acknowledged that the incident arose from a mutual confrontation involving misunderstandings on all sides. She looked up. No. Peter rubbed his forehead. You have not finished reading. I don't need to. There is no admission against you. There is, where? Mutual confrontation. Peter sighed. Funke, this is legal language. It is English. It gives everybody a way to move on. She looked at him. What misunderstanding did Ruth have when Zara held her arm? Peter said nothing. What misunderstanding did I have when the hand went up? The wording is not saying nobody was wrong. It is saying everybody was wrong enough that nobody has to say who did what. Peter leaned forward. You are back at work. Your pay is intact. Bright Axis will stop pursuing you. What more do you want? Funke stared at him. There it was again. The question people asked when justice had become inconvenient. What more do you want? As if wanting the record to be accurate was greed. As written, Funke said. I won't sign. Peter's shoulders dropped. Think about it. I have. You read it for 2 minutes. I have been thinking about the issue for 2 weeks. Funke. She stood. If they want confidentiality, fine. If they want me not to attack Zara online, fine. I never did. If they want a factual statement that there was physical contact, fine. But I will not sign something saying a woman being pushed aside in a pharmacy was a mutual misunderstanding. Peter watched her go. For the first time, he did not think she was being stubborn. He thought she was doing what he had failed to do on Saturday, drawing a line before somebody else decided where it should be. Faith chose that same afternoon to stop being silent. She came into the stockroom while Funke was counting a delivery. Can I talk to you? Funke looked at her. Of course. Faith closed the door halfway, then opened it again. No, leave it open. Funke noticed. You're okay? I want to give a formal statement. Funke put down the inventory sheet. You don't have to because of me. I know. Are you sure? No. Funke almost smiled. Faith shook her head. I'm scared, but I'm more scared of what I'm becoming. Funke said nothing. Faith continued. When Peter asked what I saw, I said I was near stock. That was true. But I used truth to hide the truth. Funke looked at her. Faith rubbed her palms against her trousers. My mother always says a lie is not only what you say. Sometimes it is what you allow somebody to believe. That is a dangerous mother. Faith laughed nervously. She is. Do you want me there when you speak to HR? No, but good. Faith blinked. Good? You should say what you saw without worrying about protecting me. Faith nodded slowly. I saw Zara grab Mama's arm. I heard her say old people think everybody must stop for them. I saw her raise her hand. I saw you catch it. Funke swallowed. Then say exactly that, I will. Faith turned to leave. Faith, she stopped. Thank you. Faith looked back. I should have done it earlier. Yes, Faith flinched. Funke continued. But earlier is gone. That was all. No speech about bravery. No instant absolution. Just a door left open. Peter gave his own supplemental statement the following Monday. He did not make himself look good. That was perhaps why Marcus believed him. Peter admitted Bright Axis had threatened to reconsider the activation relationship if Funke remained customer-facing. He admitted he suspended her before watching the CCTV. He admitted 2 earlier complaints from elderly customers had been mentioned informally by staff, but not elevated because they were seen as low-level service issues. Marcus asked, why not? Peter looked tired. Because nobody was injured. Was that the standard? No, then why? Peter took a long breath. Because the complaints were inconvenient and the account was profitable. Marcus wrote the sentence down exactly. Peter watched him. Will that be in the report? Yes. Peter nodded. Good. Marcus looked up. Good? If you make it sound nicer, I will learn nothing. That was the first moment Marcus believed Oakline might actually change. The final review meeting took place 9 days later. No media, no crowd, no dramatic entrance. Just the people who had decisions to make. Marcus summarized the findings. First, the incident itself. Bright Axis personnel had obstructed normal customer access during filming. Zara had physically taken Ruth by the arm after Ruth declined to move. The footage showed Zara raising an open hand and moving toward Ruth immediately before Funke intervened. The review could not conclusively determine whether Zara intended a slap, a shove, or another gesture. It did not need to. Her conduct had already crossed the line. Second, Funke. Her intervention involved physical contact, but it was brief, reactive, and occurred after the escalation visible on footage. There was no evidence that Funke initiated aggression. Her same-day report was materially consistent with the footage. Third, the reports. Zara's account omitted her own prior physical contact with Ruth and included 2 claims not supported by CCTV. That was not a memory problem Marcus was willing to ignore. Fourth, the system. Bright Axis had prior complaints indicating dismissive treatment of elderly customers under Zara's supervision. Those complaints had been downgraded as customer service friction. Oakline had also prioritized commercial stability over a neutral review when it suspended Funke before examining available footage. Fifth, the contract. Meridian's own vendor rules had failed to require escalation of repeated dignity and accessibility complaints unless they crossed a higher harm threshold. Marcus looked around the table. This is not one person's failure. Zara's lawyer shifted. Marcus raised a hand. That does not mean nobody is individually accountable. It means individual accountability is not enough. Then came the consequences. Bright Axis removed Zara permanently from the Meridian account and from people management duties pending the outcome of its internal disciplinary process. The agency accepted a corrective action requirement before any renewal discussions. Oakline issued Funke a written confirmation that there was no disciplinary finding against her, restored her promotion review, and agreed to provide back pay for any suspension amount that might otherwise have been withheld. Peter received a formal management warning for acting before reviewing evidence and was required to complete revised incident response training with other branch managers. Meridian paused the affected activation campaign and required new accessibility and customer treatment standards across retail vendors. Then Marcus looked at Funke. There is one more matter. Bright Axis has withdrawn the proposed mutual confrontation wording. Funke nodded. Thank you. Zara looked at her. For the first time since the pharmacy, there was no anger in her face, only exhaustion. The meeting ended. People gathered papers. Chairs moved. The drama should have been over. It was not, because consequences on paper were only the first test. What people did after the room emptied would decide whether any of it meant something. The first thing Funke did after the findings was not celebrate. She went back to work. Oakline was busy. Of course it was. People still needed medicine while corporate people wrote reports about dignity. By 10:30 that morning, Funke had already corrected a stock entry, called a supplier about delayed insulin pens, helped a young mother understand a dosage instruction, and moved a carton somebody had left near the emergency exit. At 11, Mr. Adewale arrived. He placed his prescription on the counter and squinted at Funke. So you have returned fully? I have been back for days. Returned. Funke smiled. Yes, good. He looked around dramatically. Then reduce the price of my medicine. Funke burst out laughing. Some customers turned. Mr. Adewale grinned. There was kindness in the joke, not pity. Funke appreciated that more than he knew. The written correction from Oakline arrived that afternoon. It stated that Funke's suspension had been precautionary and that the completed review found no misconduct warranting discipline. It also acknowledged that available evidence should have been reviewed before the initial employment action. Peter called her into his office after closing. The door stayed open. Funke noticed. He probably meant her to. I signed the management warning, he said. Funke leaned against the doorframe. Okay, I am not telling you because I want sympathy. Good. He nodded. I also reinstated your promotion assessment. Funke's expression did not change. When? Next month. Same criteria? Same criteria. No special consideration because of what happened. Peter looked surprised. You don't want special consideration? No, most people would. I want the assessment I had before somebody put my career on hold. Peter nodded slowly. Fair. Funke looked at him. Sir, yes? What happens next time a partner threatens the branch? Peter leaned back in his chair. I review evidence before sacrificing whoever is easiest. Funke stared. He gave a tired smile. You wanted honesty. Yes, there it is. She nodded. Good night, sir. Good night, Funke. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning that had cost him something. Pride, authority, and the comfort of believing he had merely been practical. That mattered. Zara's consequences took longer. Bright Axis placed her on administrative leave while its disciplinary panel reviewed the incident, her report, and the earlier complaints. She was not arrested. Nobody confiscated her house. No mysterious bank account disappeared. Her life did not collapse because life rarely obeyed stories that neatly. But the part of her identity she valued most took a direct hit. She lost the Meridian account. She lost her managerial authority. Her year-end bonus was reduced under Bright Axis policy after the account loss and disciplinary findings. Most painfully, she lost the assumption that she was excellent at her job simply because her campaigns hit numbers. 3 weeks after the review, Bode asked her to attend a final HR meeting. Zara sat opposite him, calmer now. Not humbled in the pretty way people liked to describe. Just tired. Bode handed her the letter. Bright Axis would retain her, but not in a people management role for 6 months. She would undergo conduct and client safety retraining. Any return to management would depend on performance and behavior. Zara read the page twice. "You're keeping me? For now. Why?" Bode frowned. "You expected dismissal?" "I expected you to protect the company. This is protecting the company." She looked at him. He continued. "Firing you would be simple. Saying the problem was Zara George and nothing else would be convenient. It would also be false." Zara's eyes narrowed. "You're admitting the targets contributed. Yes, the filming rules. Yes, the pressure. Yes." For the first time, Zara seemed angry on behalf of something other than herself. "Then why am I the one losing my role? Because pressure did not raise your hand." She went still. Bode did not soften it. Targets did not write a false account. A contract did not grab an elderly customer. The system created pressure. "You decided what to do with it." Zara looked back at the letter. That was the line she could not argue with. Not honestly. She signed acknowledgement of receipt. At the door, Bode said, "One more thing." She turned. "You owe Funke an apology." Zara's face hardened. "Is that mandatory?" "No, then don't tell me what I owe." Bode nodded. Fair, she left. 2 days later, Funke received an email from Zara anyway. No lawyer copied, no corporate language. The subject was simply Saturday. Funke stared at it for nearly a minute before opening it. Zara wrote that she had spent weeks telling herself the moment had been misunderstood. She wrote that stress was real, but did not excuse the way she had spoken to Ruth or the omissions in her report. She admitted she had wanted Funke punished because Funke's intervention had embarrassed her in front of her team. Then came one sentence Funke did not expect. "I was more offended that you stopped me than I was ashamed of needing to be stopped." Funke read that line again. It was ugly, which was why she believed it. Zara ended without asking for forgiveness. "I am sorry for what I did to Mrs. Ibe and for what I tried to make happen to you afterward." Funke closed the email. She did not reply that day or the next. On the 3rd day, she wrote 4 words. "I received your message. Nothing else." Dami looked over her shoulder. "That's all?" "That's all. You don't want to say you forgive her." Funke looked at her cousin. "Do I?" Dami thought about it. "Fair." Funke sent the reply. She did not owe Zara immediate emotional relief, simply because Zara had finally told the truth. Repair was not a vending machine where apology went in and forgiveness dropped out. A week later, Ruth invited Funke to lunch. Not at a luxury hotel. At a small restaurant Ruth liked in Ikeja because, according to her, they know pepper should have consequences. Funke arrived expecting Ruth alone. Ikenna was there too. He stood when she approached. Funke looked at Ruth. "You ambushed me." Ruth looked offended. "I invited you to lunch. There is food. Where is the ambush?" Ikenna laughed. Funke sat. Lunch remained ordinary for the first 20 minutes. Ruth complained about a neighbor's generator. Ikenna complained about Ruth refusing to replace a phone with a cracked corner. Funke tried not to laugh when Ruth told him, "The phone still calls people. What else do you want it to do, deliver babies?" Then Ikenna became serious. "Funke, I wanted to thank you properly." She put down her fork. "You already thanked me." "I said thank you in a lobby." "That is still thank you." He smiled faintly. "I know you were affected financially and professionally. My pay was restored. I know. And my promotion review is back. I know." Ruth looked between them, clearly enjoying herself. Ikenna ignored her. "I am not trying to pay you for stopping someone from hurting my mother." "Good. But I would like to do something useful." Funke looked at him. "Useful for who?" That made him pause. "For you." Then I don't know. Ruth spoke. What did you complain about before the incident? Funke turned. What? The stand. It blocked the aisle. What else? Funke thought. The activation setup ignored normal pharmacy flow. And the promoters had no guidance for elderly customers or anyone who needed more time. Ruth nodded. Ikenna watched Funke more closely. She continued. Actually, the problem is bigger than chairs and aisles. How? He asked. People design retail promotions for the fastest customer. The person who hears quickly, reads quickly, walks quickly, answers quickly. Anyone slower becomes a delay. Ikenna said nothing. Funke went on. In a pharmacy, that is dangerous. Some people need instructions repeated. Some need to sit. Some have poor eyesight. Some are embarrassed to say they cannot read a label. If your promoter is rewarded for moving people through fast, the easiest person to neglect is the one who needs more time. Ruth smiled into her glass. Ikenna noticed. You have thought about this. I work in it. Have you written anything? Funke hesitated. I wrote a branch proposal last year. Peter never used it. What kind of proposal? Customer flow changes, better seating, clearer aisle rules, a simple escalation process when an activation conflicts with pharmacy service. Nothing fancy. Do you still have it? Yes. Send it to me. Funke frowned. For what? For review. I'm not giving you free consulting because I caught somebody's wrist. Ruth laughed. So suddenly she coughed. Ikenna stared at Funke. Then he laughed too. Fair. He took out his phone. I will have Meridian's retail operations team contact Oakline formally. If they want your input beyond your normal job, they can contract for it. Funke blinked. You mean pay me? For professional work? Yes. That is usually how employment works. Ruth shook her head. He thinks he is funny. Funke smiled. I'm beginning to see that. The conversation ended there. No check appeared under a plate. No car keys were pushed across the table. No promise that Funke's life would change overnight. Instead, 3 days later, she received an email from Meridian's retail operations team asking whether she would participate in a paid workshop with Oakline and other pharmacy partners. The purpose was specific. Redesign retail activation guidelines for accessibility, customer flow, and frontline escalation. Funke read the email twice. Then she forwarded it to Peter. His reply came quickly. We should discuss. They discussed. Peter was uncomfortable at first, not because he opposed the project, because Funke's expertise was now being recognized by a partner he had once tried to protect from her. Life had a sense of humor even when people did not. I think you should do it, Peter said. During work hours? Yes, we're scheduled. We can coordinate. And Oakline is comfortable with Meridian paying me separately for approved workshop time. We will structure it properly. Funke nodded. No handshake confusion. Peter almost smiled. No handshake confusion. The first workshop was awkward. Bright Axis sent new representatives. Oakline sent Peter and Funke. Meridian sent retail operations, compliance, and customer experience staff. Ruth was not there. Neither was Ikenna. That was intentional. The project had to survive without the mother and son who had triggered it. Funke stood at the front of the room with a marker in her hand. Behind her was a whiteboard. She had written one question. Wusho becomes a problem when we optimize for speed. A Meridian manager read it aloud. Is that not a bit provocative? Funke capped the marker. Yes. He waited for more. There was none. A few people laughed. Then the room got to work. They mapped a normal pharmacy visit from the perspective of different customers. Someone using a cane. Someone with low vision. A parent carrying a sick child. A customer who spoke softly and needed more explanation. A person waiting for a prescription while a marketing activation occupied the aisle. They found simple failures. Promotional stands placed where people naturally queued. Chairs removed because they looked untidy on camera. Staff evaluated on engagement numbers but not complaints. No clear rule about who had final authority when marketing activity conflicted with pharmacy service. Funke proposed one. In a pharmacy, patient and customer access wins. Every time. The Bright Axis representative asked, even if filming is live? Funke looked at him. Especially then. A camera is not an emergency. Nobody argued. By the end of the day, they had dragged out 5 practical changes. Keep required aisles unobstructed. Maintain accessible seating. Do not relocate customers solely for visual cleanliness unless a safe equivalent route exists and the customer agrees. Train activation staff to recognize when a retail employee has authority to stop promotional activity. Escalate repeated dignity and accessibility complaints even when no physical injury occurs. Marcus added one more. Complaint categories should not erase patterns. Funke nodded. That line entered the final guideline. The training did not turn Funke's action into a rule that everybody should grab somebody during an argument. Funke insisted on that. At the second workshop, one regional manager asked the question directly. So are we telling staff to physically intervene whenever a customer is threatened? No, Funke said. The man looked surprised. But that is what you did. That is what I did in one situation. She stood beside the whiteboard. If there is time to call security, call security. If you can create space without touching anybody, do that. If somebody is shouting, but there is no immediate physical danger, don't turn shouting into wrestling because you want to be a hero. A few people smiled. Funke did not. And if you intervene, document what happened. Preserve evidence. Get medical help if somebody is hurt. Don't chase strangers online to win an argument. Marcus, sitting at the back, wrote something down. The regional manager folded his arms. So when is physical intervention justified? Funke paused. She was careful with the answer. When harm looks immediate, and you reasonably believe you can interrupt it without making the situation worse. Even then, the aim is to stop the harm, not punish the person. She thought of Zara's wrist in her hand. I held her long enough for the movement to stop. Then I let go. If I had hit her afterward because I was angry, this would be a very different story. That quieted the room. The point mattered to Funke because she had seen what the internet did with clean heroes and clean villains. Reality was rarely that obedient. A person could do the right thing badly. A frightened manager could cause injustice without waking up that morning, planning to hurt anyone. A woman under pressure could still be responsible for the choices she made under that pressure. And a good policy had to work on ordinary days, not only when everybody agreed who the good person was. The team added a short intervention ladder to the guideline. First, create space and give a clear verbal instruction. Second, call the responsible site manager or security when time permits. Third, if there is immediate danger, act only as much as needed to interrupt it. Fourth, check the person at risk before arguing about blame. Fifth, preserve records and report facts while memories are fresh. No dramatic language. No instruction to become a savior. Just steps people could remember when adrenaline made thinking difficult. Funke liked that. A month earlier, everybody had been asking whether she was a hero or an aggressor. Now, the better question was becoming simpler. What should a decent employee actually do next time? At the end of the workshop, Marcus walked beside her toward the lift. You know what was strongest today, he asked. What? You telling them not to copy you? Funke laughed. I don't want 10 pharmacy workers grabbing wrists because they watched one training video. Exactly. The lift arrived. Marcus held the door. You're good at this, at arguing, at turning one incident into a usable rule without pretending the incident was simple. Funke stepped inside. Please tell Peter that when promotion time comes. Marcus smiled. I think you should tell Peter yourself. The doors closed. 3 months passed. The viral clip disappeared into the internet's basement. Not deleted. Nothing ever truly disappeared there. Just buried beneath newer outrage. A celebrity argument. A football controversy. A politician's microphone failure. A wedding fight. Funke's face stopped appearing when people searched Oakline. The branch returned to ordinary problems, which was another kind of healing. Her promotion assessment came in the 4th month. Peter did not lead it alone. Oakline's area operations manager joined. They reviewed Funke's previous performance, stock accuracy, staff supervision, customer feedback, incident handling, and the external accessibility work. Nobody asked whether she had saved the mother of a billionaire. Funke would have objected if they had. At the end, the area manager folded his notes. We are offering you branch operations manager. Funke sat very still. She had imagined this moment for 3 years. In those versions, she always smiled immediately. In reality, Her first thought was about her father. He would have complained that the salary increase was too small before telling every neighbor in Ibadan. Her second thought was about Peter saying, "Keep your record clean." Her third was stranger. She thought about how close she had come to signing the apology. Not because signing it would have made her a bad person, because fear had made the false version of events look temporarily affordable. She looked at the area manager. "What are the terms?" Peter covered a smile with his hand. The area manager laughed. "Good, let's discuss them." Funke negotiated, not aggressively, properly. Salary, responsibilities, weekend coverage, training budget, authority over third-party activations inside the branch. That last one mattered most. It was written down. When she called her mother that evening, she tried to sound calm. "Mummy, they promoted me." Her mother screamed so loudly Funke pulled the phone away. Dami ran from the bedroom. "What happened?" Funke laughed. "My mother has forgotten her own advice about sleeping." On the other end, her mother shouted, "Put me on speaker!" Dami grabbed the phone. The flat became noisy. For 5 minutes, Funke allowed it. No lesson, no reflection, just noise and happiness. Ruth heard about the promotion from Ikenna 2 days later. He called her during breakfast. Funke got the role. Ruth spread groundnut paste on bread. "I know, how? She called me." Ikenna sounded offended. "She called you before me. Why should she call you?" "I don't know, I'm the CEO." "Exactly." He laughed. Ruth took a bite. "How is the new vendor guideline?" "Pilot is active in 12 retail locations. And complaints are easier to trace. Activation teams have stop-work rules. The accessibility checklist is now mandatory for new campaigns." Ruth chewed. "Good. You don't sound impressed." "I will be impressed when nobody remembers why you created it." Ikenna frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means a good rule should eventually become boring." He was quiet. Then he said, "You were a difficult principal. I was excellent." "That is not what I said. It is what you meant." 6 months after the day of the almost slap, Oakline hosted another health promotion. Different campaign, different agency team. Saturday again. Funke arrived early. She wore the same light sky blue work shirt she had worn that first day, though the badge on it was new. Funke Joindranch operations manager. The orange lanyard still annoyed her neck. Some things did not improve with promotion. She walked the floor before opening. Emergency exit clear, prescription aisle clear. 2 chairs near the consultation corner. Portable display positioned away from the main queue. The agency lead approached her. "Ms. Johnson, camera will be here. Is this fine?" Funke checked the path. "Yes, but if the queue grows into this area, move the camera, not the customers." "Understood." She looked at him. He smiled. "I read the guideline." "Good." By 11, the pharmacy was crowded. Faith was training a new cashier. Peter had moved to oversee another branch and came by only occasionally. The new activation team kept their volume low. Nobody congratulated themselves for it. That was also progress. At 11:20, an elderly man entered. He wore a grey cap and carried a folded walking stick that he opened just inside the door. He paused when he saw the queue. The nearest promoter was a young woman named Simi. She had been working at Oakline for only 2 weeks. Funke was behind the prescription counter checking a delivery note. She saw the old man. She also saw Simi see him. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then Simi looked at the promotional stand beside her, looked at the narrow space between it and the chairs. She stepped forward. "Sir, 1 moment." The old man stopped. Simi moved the stand back by 1/2 meter. Then she carried one of the chairs closer. "You can sit here if you want. The queue will reach you." The man smiled. "Thank you, my daughter." "No problem, sir." That was it. No applause, no phone came out, no billionaire walked through the door. No one knew whose father the man was. Perhaps he had a rich son. Perhaps he did not have a son at all. It did not matter. Funke watched from behind the counter. Simi returned to the activation and adjusted the stand so the aisle remained open. She did not know Funke was watching. That mattered too. Faith came beside Funke with a stock sheet. "You're smiling." "I'm not. You are." Funke looked down at the delivery note. "Bring me the insulin count before 12. Faith grinned. "Yes, Madam Manager." Don't start. At noon, Ruth walked into the pharmacy. She wore a simple navy dress this time and carried the same brown handbag. Simi greeted her. Good afternoon, Ma. Good afternoon. Do you need help finding anything? No, thank you. I know where I am going. Okay, Ma. And Simi stepped aside. No one whispered. No one rushed to offer special treatment. No one announced that the woman entering was the mother of Ikenna Ibe. Ruth joined the queue. When she reached the counter, Funke looked up. Ma, Ruth. Madam Manager. Funke rolled her eyes. You too? Ruth smiled. I came for my test strips. You could have called. And missed the chance to inspect your kingdom. This is a pharmacy, Ma. Every manager thinks her branch is a kingdom. Funke fetched the test strips. Ruth glanced toward the elderly man sitting near the aisle, then toward Simi. I saw that. Funke followed her gaze. So did I. Did you tell her to do it? No. Ruth nodded. That was all. Funke rang up the purchase. Ruth paid. Before leaving, she placed one hand on the counter. You know the funny thing? What? The day Zara raised her hand, everybody thought the important person in that pharmacy was the woman with the expensive campaign. Funke smiled faintly. And later they thought it was you because of your son. Ruth raised an eyebrow. And now? Funke looked across the room. The old man was reading a leaflet. Simi was helping another customer. Faith was correcting the new cashier without embarrassing him. Nobody was performing goodness for anybody. Now I think the important person is whoever needs something from us at that moment. Ruth considered the answer. Better. Only better. I was a teacher. I don't give full marks easily. Funke laughed. Ruth walked toward the door. Halfway there, she stopped beside the old man. He looked up. You can take my place when they call number 36, he said. I am 37. Ruth smiled. No, sir, keep your place. You are sure? I have waited before. He nodded and returned to his leaflet. Ruth left. Funke watched the door close behind her. Then the refrigerator alarm beeped from the back. Faith, I heard it. Check the door. I'm checking. Life resumed. That was the part Funke came to value most. Not that the powerful people had finally listened. Not that a company had written a new policy. Not even that her own career recovered. The real proof was quieter. A chair moved before an old man had to ask. A blocked aisle was treated as a problem before someone got hurt. A young employee understood that a customer was not an obstacle to the work. The customer was the work. There are moments when character is easy to perform because the room is watching. There are other moments when nobody important appears to be present, no reward is promised, and doing the decent thing may even cost you something. Those are the moments that reveal what respect actually means. Funke did not know Ruth's surname when she stepped forward. She did not know there was a billionaire CEO anywhere behind that old woman. She only knew a hand was rising towards someone who had already said, clearly, do not touch me, so she stopped it. Months later, the thing that remained was not the almost slap. It was the chair. Simi pulled it closer for the old man, then turned back to her work without checking whether anyone had noticed.